Hey there. So this is a speed up video of a study I did. This is my character Dolores in a painting by JM Nattier called Portrait of Marrie Henriette of France as Flora. So I guess this is like Dolores as Marie as Flora. This is the painting I referenced. I honestly just kind of pulled it out of a random art book I have. But I liked that, it's kind of interesting as like a portrait of a woman. The shadows are really heavy, and I thought that's kind of cool. And then this is the what I cropped from it. So I didn't need the whole thing. I just wanted to do this just quickly in one evening. This is watercolor paper with a red acrylic and then black India ink that's slightly watered down with some added blue watercolor. I add blue watercolor because I hate the brown of black Speedball ink. I think it's so ugly, and the blue neutralizes it, which is great. And I have, out of camera, I have two little plastic containers, one with like really watered down ink, and then the other one has almost, well, pretty dark ink. It's not that dark. I figure it's better to layer it up instead of going with pitch black. But yeah, I wanted to practice some lighting. I wanted to see. I have a lot of interest in taking fine art and making it something that's a lot darker, a lot more sinister. Like a lot of artists. I don't really know what to say in these voiceovers. I don't know how other YouTubers do this, but that's me trying to cover up a mistake with some red paint, and it's really just blending into the ink underneath. And just trying to build up the layers in her hair. I am terrible with hair. I can't draw or paint hair. I find it really difficult. I don't know why I made a character that has long hair, because it's not easy every time I draw her or paint her. I can paint it better than I can draw it, but it's a real struggle. I'm trying to learn how to do it, because it's one of my weakest subjects. Yeah, I don't really like it. If anyone can give me some tips on painting hair, I'd love them, because it's the bane of my existence. I don't mind drawing like hands, feet. Not to say that it's great, but it looks way better than hair. But yeah, I find that red and black always looks great, and having like a really bright color underneath a monochromatic study or painting or whatever really makes everything glow. And red and black always looks cool, obviously. And this is sped up. This took me about, I'm gonna say, took me amazingly just pure painting time, probably like an hour and 20 minutes, which really surprises me. I thought this took like 6 hours. I kind of could just get in the zone. Like, I was just watching some art docs on YouTube while I was doing this. Usually when I paint or when I draw, I don't take any breaks, which is really bad. But I just really enjoy it. Like, I'm not sitting there agonizing, like, I just want to get this done so I can stop. I just really enjoy working on things for a really long time. If I could, I'd spend an entire day working on one thing. But lately I've been kind of restless and I can't really do that. But that's usually what I do. I work on one thing until I'm done, and then I don't do anything else, really. So in the original painting, the woman is holding a flower crown, or a wreath of flowers, whatever it may be. This is very character specific, this study, which is part of the point. Adapting a painting to fit a character. So she's holding a crown of thorns, and one of the thorns is pricking her finger. The unofficial title of this painting, I would say, is Dolores in Anguish. That's what I came up for my art station, since you have to have a title. I don't actually title my work. As far as I'm concerned, this is titled Study of such and such. But I think it's... What I'm finding with ArtStation is that it's kind of good to challenge yourself to title something, but it's not like my thing. It's so funny. I finished painting this and then I was like, what is missing in this whole time? And I forgot like so many key elements of this character design, which is amazing because this is my own character. But whatever. I added them in later, which you'll see. I didn't film that, but you'll see the end result. It's kind of weird, like, watching yourself paint something. And the only time I've ever done speed paints before has been digitally. Those are on my old channel. If you find them, you find them. I'm not going to help you. Not that I'm, like, embarrassed by those drawings. I'm just lazy. But, yeah, digitally. I used to draw digitally way more. And I find that I hate, like, dealing with the digital stuff is such a hassle. I'm an old man. I can't figure that stuff out. Like, I can draw and paint digitally just fine. I haven't in years, but I can do it. But I don't know how to do anything else. As far as I'm concerned, mentally, in terms of, like, my knowledge on things, the only tools that exist in any art program are the eraser and the brushes, and I only ever use like one or two brushes in whatever program it is, and like the color picker, obviously. But yeah, I don't do digital art anymore. I realized you're just limited to what you can learn digitally. Which is not something a lot of people say. I could explain, but I'm not going to do that in this video. Maybe someday in the future way, way, way in the future. I'll explain what I mean further, because it's a long explanation. But yeah, and I realized I wanted to be a fine artist, and you kind of have to work traditionally that way, and that's fine. I think I work a lot faster traditionally, and like I hate drawing digitally. It's hard for me. Something about the disconnect. There's just a layer that isn't there, and that's not easy for me. But yeah, this is, traditional. I also want to get a way better at ink drawing. It's something I care a lot about learning, so I wanted to do something that involved a lot of ink washes, which is really hard. Ink washes are really hard. It was kind of hard for me to understand how to do the hair when I have to work light to dark. My main medium is gouache, so I'm used to being able to put in the light on top of the dark, and that's way easier for painting hair. But, obviously can't really do that with this, so I had to wing it. It was so hard for me. You're gonna see, the hair is not good in this. It's the weakest part of this whole drawing. But yeah, I think doing studies is really important. Doing studies like this, especially if you have your own original character, adapting something that already exists to be almost completely different to suit a character of yours, I think helps a lot in helping you develop not just the character, but also your way of thinking. It helps you cultivate ideas. And that's kind of the main thing that artists always need, right? Ideas. I don't know, I have a million, and I have to draw all of them. It's kind of frustrating. But yeah. And got kind of distracted. Kind of lost in my thoughts. Like I said, I'm not used to talking this much and not having anyone say anything back. I'm more of a conversation person. I prefer hearing other people talk. But anyway, I'm trying to do a lot more studies. Something that I've always had a lot of interest in is classical devotional art, like medieval Catholic paintings, stuff like that. An artist that I really admire is Francis Bacon, especially the Screaming Pope, one of his most famous paintings. I saw that painting when I was a kid, and it always really stuck with me. The painting that takes one painting and completely molds it into something totally different that is still recognizable from the original. If you put them both together, you can still see them. You can see what happened. But if you really try to think about it, as being the same painting, it's clearly not. And they're both incredibly different. But one couldn't exist. Francis Bacon's rendition couldn't exist without the originals. And the original brings context into his painting within his emotions and his life. He grew up in a household that was extremely Irish Catholic, very abusive. He was gay. That was like a big thing in his household. Big taboo, obviously, especially back then, especially within the Catholic religion. And obviously, it really affected him. And you can really see that in that painting. It really helps inform his life. I think that art history is so important because everything is self-referential. No one's art is 100% original, of course. Everything stems from somewhere. So, to me, it's kind of just only natural to take all those things that already exist and just basically copy them. I mean, artists have been doing that for years, for forever. They've just been copying each other over and over and over again. I mean, Pablo Picasso and Matisse, all they did, not all they did, but that was their whole relationship. It was a conversation, having a conversation with the past, with each other. And yeah, that was a total tangent, but like I was saying, I want to do a lot more studies, and a lot of the art that I want to make in the future is very involved in that. I think that I grew up in Catholic churches, and seeing the iconography has always been really interesting to me. The constant iconography that stays the same or almost exactly the same throughout centuries, hundreds of years. It hasn't really changed. The image of Jesus on the cross is, I mean, it's the same thing. It's always the same thing. No matter how many times there's changes, it's always the same thing in the end. So that's something I really want to explore. And then with this piece, I just thought it was so interesting the way that the artwork is originally, I don't know if it was a commission or a gift from the painter to a French guy. It's a painting of his wife as a character, obviously. I thought it was so interesting that the colors are so dark, the shadows are so heavy in the painting, and it's a painting of a woman. And the painting itself, she's laid out the way women commonly are in those kinds of paintings. Very elegantly, very soft, very feminine. But the whole scene is kind of dark in terms of color. I think that's really interesting. It's an interesting way to depict the scene. It doesn't seem like something that would be that way. And I thought it would be cool to make it darker. I also don't draw this character enough. She's kind of the only other character I really draw, but only other character of mine that I really draw, but I don't draw her that much, enough at least. I get really distracted with other things that I want to draw. I'm always changing my mind. But yeah, I mean, simple ink wash. I really like the way it turned out. Um, it looks almost digital. The way everything layers and the texture that the ink ends up having. It's really interesting to see. And I really like the way that I can just kind of. I can't go. I can't necessarily wash out the ink if I make a mistake on the acrylic, but because the acrylic is, essentially plastic, I can kind of wash things out a little bit without damaging what's underneath, unless I was really going at it. But it's pretty easy to wipe things away, which is pretty cool. I've never worked with a medium where I could do that. I'm used to mistakes being mistakes. Either I cover them up or I live with them for the rest of my life. But yeah, it was really fun to work with this. I've never worked in this way before. And I did think about laying down watercolor instead of acrylic, just out of convenience, but this watercolor paper I have is super cheap, so the watercolor doesn't really lay down in it. It doesn't really get absorbed. You can't build up really nice, super vibrant washes, and the acrylic is just, it's really vibrant, and it's pretty new, so I wanted to play around with it. But yeah, the paper I have, I don't know how to use watercolor very well because I've never owned very good watercolor. And when it comes to watercolor, the paper does actually matter quite a bit. If you don't have something that can't absorb the watercolor, or if the watercolor sits on top, you can't do glazing, which is really important with watercolor because it's not that easy to get super vibrant color with one pass. You can, but it's not as vibrant as it could be if you could glaze. But yeah, the paper's pretty important. So it's fine. I mean, I can do washes of watercolor underneath my gouache, which is just fine for me. That's how I've always worked. I didn't really realize that the paper was such a big problem until I got a sketchbook that I'm currently working in, and I did a painting in it that turned out really great. And then I tried to do another painting using the same technique on the paper that I have now, and then something just wasn't working out. It was just really terrible. I couldn't do the same effect, and I couldn't understand why. And then I remembered some YouTube videos that I had watched where people had mentioned that watercolor paper is really important to the quality of the painting. Yeah, like I said before, basically the absorbency and the way the watercolor sits on top of it is really important. But I don't really know enough about that to go into a ton of detail. I just know that stuff. I'm sure you can look it up on YouTube since everything is on YouTube. You'll find it on why watercolor paper is so important, because it is. But yeah, I do think I'll do some other studies like this. I don't know if I'll do them so large or so cropped, because this is really cropped, like you saw in the photo I showed. The original painting is a lot bigger. It's not portrait, it's landscape. But I wanted to do something quick, so I did. Because I'm working on something else and I have some commissions that I have to do. And I'm trying to only really work on stuff that's personal on the weekends. When I'm supposed to be taking a break. But I never take a break because this is, I mean, there's nothing else to do really, and this is the thing I enjoy the most out of the few things that anyone can do right now. But yeah, personal work. I'm also trying to produce like a way more pieces. I mean, I don't really consider this a piece because it's a study, clearly. But just stuff, and I need to work a lot bigger than I have been. I would say that this study, this painting, is about, hold on, I have it right here, so I'll just measure that. It's, almost 10.5 by, I'm not good with measurements. I don't know how to use them really. Almost 10.5 by almost 8.25. I hope that helps, because I don't know. I don't know how to use measurements. I didn't pay attention in that part of school, or really any part, other than science and math. Yeah. Yep. This is looking pretty good here from my end on watching it, watching the same stuff you guys are. I think it looks great. That hand looks so big. Once I cropped this, because this is, on a larger paper, once I cropped it, the hand doesn't look as big, but lately I've been drawing the hand so much bigger than, the rest of everything. Lately my proportions have been really off, and when I look at older drawings, they're not actually off. I thought it was just a problem with, when you get better, you start noticing your old mistakes that you're doing. But I don't know. I guess I've just been doing something, and it's been messing with the way I understand proportions or the way I draw them. But yeah, like I said, well, I actually don't remember what I said. Oh well. It's looking pretty good. I think it's the last thing I said. I don't really like how pretty she looks in this. She looks kind of like a model. That's not really the intention. But she does look intense, as you can see in the final scanned and edited image. I couldn't get it as orange as it is in real life. It's not super orange, but it's more orange than this. I really like the way it came out. I forgot to add her tattoos, so I added them off screen. But yeah, let me know if you like it. Thanks for watching.